Ireland is still debating the scandal of child abuse in the Catholic Church, 8 years after a royal commission into the matter delivered its groundbreaking report. It found abuse was endemic in church-run schools where the underprivileged and troubled were sent. The Ryan Commission published its report in 2009, 10 years after it began, and found that beyond a doubt the entire system treated children like prison inmates and slaves. Mannix Flynn was 7 years old when he was taken to court for skipping school and stealing a toy car in Dublin. He was sentenced to 7 years at St Joseph's Industrial School in Letterfrack on the other side of the country, run by the Christian Brothers. He suffered sexual abuse and was one of the hundreds of witnesses who gave evidence to the Ryan Commission. The inquiry in Ireland was restricted by 2 rules: there would be no calls for prosecution and no sanctions of any party involved. Mr. Flynn, who is now a Dublin City Councillor, said it was a flawed process and he was pessimistic about the impact of the Australian inquiry. The Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Child Sexual Abuse in Australia is due to hand down its final report on December the 15th. So what will happen in Australia is that there'll be a mock shock, they'll print out the report, they'll find things we already knew but there will be no justice delivered, Mr. Flynn said. In Ireland 15,500 victims were compensated at a cost of €1.25 billion after an original forecasted cost of €250 million. The latest financial report, released in early 2017, makes for interesting reading, if only to see how little money the Irish government has been able to get from the Catholic Church. A National Board for Safeguarding Children in the Catholic Church was also established from the Ryan Commission. Its current Chief Executive Officer, Teresa Devlin, gave evidence to the Australian inquiry. The board is an independent watchdog that was set up by the Church and oversees all Irish congregations, setting standards of conduct and auditing and inspecting them. What will have to happen in Australia is that the same process will have to occur, that while that body will be funded by the Church they have to assert their independence, she said. They have to demonstrate their independence, and assert to the public at large that they are not in the pocket of the Church. She believed the board's work was making a difference. 2 years ago there were 270 new allegations against priests and religions in Ireland, she said. Last year there were 79. There's no longer a situation of I'll keep it to myself. I have heard so many times, well, I told Father so-and-so and he did nothing. Father so-and-so now knows he has to do something. Patsy McGarry, a newspaper reporter in Dublin, covered the Ryan Commission for the Irish Times. It is impossible to do justice to the effect it had on the Irish people, he said. It was horrendous the stuff it came up with. It is not an exaggeration to say that the safest place for a child in Ireland today is on a Catholic Church premises. That's because of an army of women appointed by parishes to oversee the implementation of Catholic Church guidelines for the protection of children.